But this business of getting older is a strange thing. For me, it's amazing how much history I've lived through. Like, a lot's changed since I invented alternative comedy. One of the things that distressed me is the role of the topical TV comedy panel show in the rehabilitation of the reputations of war criminals. When I say war criminals, I mean people like John Prescott and Alistair Campbell. People who led us into 2 illegal wars in which hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people have died. I mean, if Joseph Goebbels was alive today, he wouldn't be on trial at Nuremberg, he'd be hosting Have I Got News For You? At least when she lost power, Thatcher had the good grace to slink off into an alcoholic haze. But people like Alistair Campbell and Ed Balls will do anything to remain in the public eye. Alistair Campbell talks movingly on Panorama about his depression. Of course you're depressed, you bastards, you're a mass murderer! Doesn't matter how many marathons you run, you'll never get away from your conscience. It's 3 bastards in a boat. Griff Rhys-Jones, Rory McGrath and Robert Mugabe. Tonight on Strictly Come Dancing, we've got Freddie Flintoff, Emily Maitlis and Radovan Karadzic, the butcher of Bosnia. The philosopher George Santayana, before he founded his Latino-influenced guitar band, said, "Those who forget the lessons of history are condemned to repeat them." This seems to have been adopted by Western governments as a policy strategy. One of the problems with the way we in the West receive our current affairs is that each broadcast or article, whether in old media or on the web, is totally without context. Each story acts as if history began last Tuesday and not a day before. This, of course, tends to favour our own self-pitying view of ourselves as victims of random and incomprehensible violence from the other. Now, from my life experience, I would propose that all news stories, for example, concerning the Middle East, would have to go back as far as the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1918, a shameful time when we betrayed the Arab nations to whom we and the French had promised independence. While every 5th piece would have to go all the way back to the Crusades to provide vital historical context, and every news story concerning China would be required to include a lengthy section concerning the Opium Wars when Britain forced the drug on the reluctant Chinese. All this context means that each edition of Newsnight will be 11 hours long. Instead of just feeling like it's 11 hours long. And each article on foreign affairs in a newspaper will be the length of a novel. But that, sadly, is the price we will have to pay to be well informed. When I was a kid, given that we were 2/3 Jewish atheist communists, Christmas was a surprisingly important occasion in Ireland. On British television during the 1950s and 1960s, the holiday period was also a time when presentations from the Soviet Union were prominently featured. It was as if there was considered to be something seasonal about performances originating from a godless authoritarian dictatorship. The Moscow State Circus, with its spectacularly unfunny clowns, disturbingly dangerous high-wire acts, and animal cruelty, would be transmitted live and at interminable length from a tent in Manchester. Now, one of the things you have to remember about my parents, particularly my mother, is that they believed, being communists, that anything from the Soviet Union was superior to anything from the West. So, best horseman in the world, my mother Molly would say with a tremble of pride in her voice, referring to the Cossack horsemen who leapt on and off the backs of their stocky ponies as they hurtled round and round the circus ring. Presumably, these men were the direct descendants of those Cossacks who'd set fire to her grandmother's village. Oh, yes, best Jew murderers in the world. Oh, if you want a pogrom organising, get yourself a Cossack. I say, apparently what determines your life expectancy, how long you live, is not what killed your parents, but what killed your grandparents. So I should live forever, as long as I don't bump into any Russian Cossacks. Which basically means not going round Knightsbridge or Chelsea.